pretty good. I'm not scared at all. I just feel kind of invincible.
Me too. I got a very positive attitude about this.
Good, me too.
Yeah.
Is it getting hot in here, or is it just me?
When it comes to Big Trouble in Little China, detractors will point to everything from production issues to low earnings to argue that it's an overrated mess. For starters, the 1986 film featured the kind of drastic, last-minute script rewrites that would turn off fans and critics alike today. Amazingly, what started out as a Western set in the 1890s ultimately turned into a martial arts adventure in San Francisco's Chinatown. Not only was production rushed by 20th Century Fox in order to beat Eddie Murphy's The Golden Child to theaters, but Big Trouble in Little China also presented an interesting plot problem to studio executives. Jack Burton, the film's white lead, was not enough of a hero, especially when compared to his Chinese-American sidekick. Unsurprisingly, this intentional role reversal flew over studio heads and led to the kind of tampering that would go on to hurt Big Trouble's theatrical release. Producers were so uncomfortable with this notion, they made the director, John Carpenter, shoot an additional opening scene that telegraphed Jack Burton's courageousness. Fortunately, Carpenter was able to keep most of what made this film a uniquely fascinating treat. While Big Trouble in Little China will never be considered a cinematic masterpiece, it stands as one of Hollywood's most important cult classics. With all of the behind-the-scenes drama, this was a film that was destined to fail, short and long term. Looking back now, it could have easily been placed alongside other forgotten efforts like 1985's Year of the Dragon and 1991's Showdown in Little Tokyo. Instead, it persisted and today stands with the likes of They Live and The Evil Dead as movies that found commercial success long after a failed release. So, what makes this movie a cult classic? To begin with, Big Trouble in Little China is essentially an American love letter to foreign film, in this case, China's magic and martial arts genre. Carpenter has referred to Zooey Hark's Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain as a heavy influence on the supernatural elements of his embattled film. Big Trouble's deep and stylish mythology, which included a trio of badass elemental masters, was so cool it influenced multiple characters from the classic Mortal Kombat video game franchise. Coming off of a bevy of genre classics such as The Thing and Escape from New York, Carpenter was equally important to the life behind his 1986 feature film. Everything from its striking cinematography to the amazingly chaotic fight sequences take after the director's vivid and odd sense of humor. In one of his boldest works to date, Carpenter flips the white hero Asian sidekick trope seen in the likes of The Green Hornet, The Lone Ranger, The Last Samurai, The Great Wall, and most recently, Iron Fist. Big Trouble instead tells the story of an American maverick who stumbles into and through a centuries-old mystical war in Chinatown. Jack Burton, a role meant for Clint Eastwood and then Jack Nicholson, eventually ended up in the capable hands of Carpenter regular, Kurt Russell, who charmingly conveyed the strengths and many weaknesses of his smug character. Imagine Han Solo with less manners and a beat-up truck instead of a beat-up spaceship. In a 2016 interview with Uproxx, Carpenter stated that Jack is a character who doesn't know he's a sidekick. He thinks he's the hero of the story, but he's not. The character is such an idiot, he doesn't do much throughout the whole film in terms of being an action movie, which is very different from all the other action heroes that were out around the time. As misleading trailers promoted Jack Burton as its lead, the film itself revolved around Dennis Dunn's fearless Wang Chi, a character written for Jackie Chan. Despite protests over this bait and switch, as well as the use of several stereotypes, Big Trouble in Little China succeeded in part because its mostly Asian cast represented dimensions of culture, strength, and style. As a viewing audience, we follow the quest of Wang Chi, not Jack Burton, to rescue his kidnapped fiancée from gangsters and sorcerers. Unlike his smug ally, Wang is mostly composed and cunning in the face of adversity and evil. Additionally, the late Victor Wong shines as Egg Shen, an old wizard with enough grit and wit to carry the film alone at times. James Hong also impresses as David Lo Pan, a mad sorcerer looking to prolong his immortality at any cost. Big Trouble in Little China is also loaded with infectious humor and some of the most memorable catchphrases in all of film.
Like I told my last wife, I says, honey, I never drive faster than I can see. Besides that, it's all in the reflexes.
Big Trouble excels primarily because it embraces its campiness in a ton of genres. Carpenter himself has described it as an action, adventure, comedy, kung fu, ghost, monster movie, which would explain its long-lasting effect on pop culture from 1986 to present day. In June of 2015, Variety reported that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson began negotiation talks to star in a remake with the same studio that fought against its original production way back when. In a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi stated, "Jack is a buffoon, but he's lovable and you're with him the entire way. I thought Thor has got to be the one that you want to be with in every scene." While Big Trouble in Little China was cheesy and damn near cursed, it represented something very important to film. John Carpenter took a major risk by flying in the face of what dominated the 80s, and he suffered at least temporarily for it. Schwarzenegger's Terminator and Stallone's Rambo stood as staples of macho masculinity that lacked the wit and accessibility that's become commonplace today in non-traditional movies like Deadpool. By challenging these conventions, Carpenter created a movie that stands the test of time. We can only hope that more directors take the same risk today and in the future.